What is going on, guys? It's your boy FitnessKensho here, dropping that full leg day routine as promised. First things first, I want to give two quick shout outs. One to my training partner Rachel for actually recording this footage that you guys are about to see, and two to my boy Eddie Beats for providing the music behind my voice. Now let's get started with this leg day. Now I pretty much did a poll on my Instagram, and I just said, when you guys want to see this footage during the quarantine or after, and 95% of you guys voted on during the quarantine, so here it is. Before we get started with this leg day, I gotta take my pre-workout here. This is Be Ready from the company that I'm sponsored by, Become Nutrition. If anybody's interested in a new pre-workout or want to check out all the supplements we have to offer, be sure to check out becomenutrition.com. So let's get started with the warm up here. So we're gonna start off with banded arm circles, and the main reason why I do banded arm circles is because prior to my leg day I usually do a push session, so naturally my shoulders are pretty tight, so doing these banded arm circles definitely helps loosen up my shoulders so that when I have that bar pinned onto my traps, it's more comfortable for me to retract my shoulder blades to keep that proper bar path throughout the entire squat. As far as how many sets you should do as many as you need to, pretty much until your shoulders are pretty loosened up. So moving right along, we're going into pull-ups. Now, I found personally that doing pull-ups prior to squatting does help engage, obviously, your lats, and it also assists with actually keeping an upright torso throughout the squat motion. The last thing you want when you're squatting is to lean forward, changing the bar path throughout each rep. Now, this movement I learned from Steve Cook a long time ago in one of his YouTube videos, and it's amazing. It's actually one of those movements that warms up the hamstrings, low back, glutes, hips, quads, shoulders, you name it. So it's one of those movements that I do dynamic stretch wise prior to every squat session. And after performing that movement, it usually helps me identify other tight areas. So as you can see, I'm doing a static quad stretch because I did notice a little bit of tightness in the knees and also in the quad area. But the way you want to warm up, honestly, is that you want to, do a body weight squat, and those areas that are tight, you want to specifically just focus on those. Now, this last warm-up exercise is one that I personally think is very underrated. Me personally, I don't squat very wide, and I don't squat very narrow. I'm right in the middle. So as a taller guy, if my ankles are pretty tight, it's going to be hard for my knees to travel as forward as possible for my hips to pretty much effortlessly fall into my hips. So if you're someone that, let's say you have problems reaching depth, I would highly suggest trying this exercise because it might not be your hip mobility. It may be just your ankle mobility that's now allowing you to sink into the hole as easily as you would like to. So definitely try this exercise if you are having the same issue. So back squat programming is pretty simple. We got 4 working sets of 3 to 5 reps, followed by 2 back down sets of 6 to 8 reps with 85% of our last working set weight. Now, one thing that I do want to preach while you guys are watching me warm up here is that you want to practice how you play. Your warm-ups matter, especially if you're someone who's trying to move heavy weight in the future, or let's say the day that you're trying to train legs. You want to train or warm up the same exact way you will perform a heavier set. So, still going through your cues, still bracing your core, still pushing your knees out, retracting your shoulder blades, keeping tightness on your upper back. All those things matter when you actually are warming up. That way, when you get to your actual working weight, your cues and your techniques will transfer over to the sets that really matter the most, which are your working sets. Now, one question that I do get asked a lot is, why do I prefer to squat? Now, I love squatting for 2 reasons. One, when I first started training and started my weight loss journey, I wasn't a good squatter. I hated squatting. Legs was the worst. So I never looked forward to actually training legs. So I've applied a lot of time to improve my squat through constant mobility and constant repetition of doing the same exact movements until I eventually identified the issues and got better at them. But two, performing compound movements, there's benefits to performing compound movements in my opinion, from the squat to the deadlift to the actual bench. Multiple muscle groups are engaged and you expend a lot of energy performing these movements. I'm not one of those people who likes to be in the gym performing exercise after exercise, more volume after volume every training session. I like to have my main movement of focus, and then I like to have my accessory movements that complement the main movement that I do for that day. So as you guys can see, we're throwing on the weightlifting belt here, and this day I didn't plan on using my weightlifting belt, but after working set number 2, I did notice that it was a little bit challenging for me to brace my core. So I wanted to throw on the weightlifting belt just to add another layer for my core to actually push out so I can properly brace. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about using a belt, I know a lot of people in the gym who own belts, and I see them all the time, but they don't know the concept of how to properly brace their core. If you have a belt on and you're not properly practicing the breathing patterns to keep your core tight, you're not going to see any benefits from using a belt. So if you have a belt and you feel like you're unsure of how to properly brace your core, get on YouTube, just type how to brace your core on squats or on deadlift, what exercise you're trying to improve, and there's a ton of tutorials on how to properly do that, just so you know that you're keeping yourself safe. Like, why have an accessory if you don't know how to properly use it? So again, I highly suggest, if you have any concerns about how to properly brace your core, definitely look into that. But in a nutshell, you want to think about it as just taking some deep breaths and then pushing your abdominal walls out towards the belt. That will keep some type of stability in your core. That way, again, you can be more powerful throughout every rep of your squat, especially when the weight gets heavier. So now that our 4 working sets are finally done, we're going to our 2 back down sets. Now, I only have footage of 1 set. Just take my word for it, we did 2. But there's 2 reasons why I do back down sets, right? So number 1, we got to understand that we're doing squats to fatigue the prime mover of the movement, which is the quad. So this is just added volume towards the quads. But reason number 2 is, if we figure out any type of weakness or areas that need a little bit more focus as far as cues or techniques during our working sets, our back down sets are there to pretty much improve those. So the more you perform the movement, naturally, the better you're going to get at them. So this is one of the reasons why I love performing my back down sets immediately after my working sets. So remember what I told you guys, I have a main movement that I focus on, and then I have accessory movements that complement it. We're moving on to goblet squats. And remember I said on my second working set, I noticed that my core was giving out a little bit, or it was a little bit challenging to keep my core braced. Goblet squats is one of those exercises. One, definitely helps loosen up your hips and work on hip mobility. But also 2, is one of those exercises similar to front squats that allows you to front load the weight, therefore putting a lot more tension on your core, your front core to be exact. And that's why I love this movement. My training partner pretty much hates them. It is what it is. I love them. Great movement for the quads, as well as keeping that upright torso, engaging the front part of your core throughout the entire squat movement. Speaking of staples, I don't know one leg day that I've done that I've never done leg extensions. Now, leg extensions is a great movement, and what makes it great in my opinion is because when we're talking about isolation just to the quads, there's no other exercise that could compete with this one. Like, honestly, you're sitting down and all you're doing is just lifting your leg up, generating all the power, and pretty much just contracting your quads throughout every movement. So leg extensions, always a staple in my leg routine. Moving right along, we're going to superset these with sissy squats right on the leg extensions. Now, sissy squats can be done in several different variations. There's other variations where people like hold on to, like, let's say a pillar or something like that, and they just lean their body forward. I don't prefer doing it that way, just because I feel like that puts a lot more tension on your knees. So if you're someone that has bad knees, doing this variation will definitely work best for you. It's always better to be safe than sorry. As you guys can see when I'm doing the leg extension here, if I was to fully lock out my leg and fully lock out my knees, that would put a lot more tension on my knees because there's gravity driving down towards my knees. So I try to do a semi-lock just to get that full contraction, and then I'm on my way down controlling the movement. And the same thing goes for the sissy squats. Again, keeping full control of the movement. And believe it or not, the sissy squats may look easy, and you're probably like, oh my god, this guy's probably not even doing anything. But trust me, try this superset, and I guarantee you that your quads are going to be feeling that burn. And that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to get more and more volume in the quads, leading up to the finale of the leg day here. Now, a leg day won't be a leg day without hamstrings in the mix. And the way I like to train my hamstrings is pretty simple. I like to do my isolation first and then do a compound exercise afterwards. And the reason why is because when I'm doing a compound exercise, like for example, let's say Romanian deadlifts or stiff leg deadlift, I found that my lower back kind of like takes a lot of that load just because it is a stronger muscle group. I tax my lower back a lot through squats, deadlifts, and even bench press, believe it or not. So doing isolation work first, fatiguing the muscle before I get to those movements, because it helps me not have to go super heavy on those compound lifts, just to engage my hamstrings. The heavier I go, again, one thing that I noticed from personal experience is that I noticed my lower back engaging that much more. Now, moving right along, we're supersetting these with kettlebell pass lunges. Now, if anybody's following the No Weak Point training program, every other day, I believe, we do some type of lunge. So you can lunge with a barbell on your back, dumbbell, or you can do this variation here, or even do body weight. I prefer to do under the leg just because I did do squats, so my lower back was a little bit taxed after the squat working sets that we did earlier. For the lying leg curl, our rep range is 12 reps full range of motion followed by 8 partial reps. And I wanted to talk about the partial reps for a second because a lot of people consider them as cheating. I personally like to perform partial reps after a set of performing the repetitions at full range of motion. A lot of people train differently, and that's perfectly fine with them. But for me personally, I like to perform a set full range of motion and then use the partial reps as an added way, just to add a little bit more extra volume on that muscle that I'm trying to target. Now, one thing that I am going to mention that I forgot to mention earlier was that there's no special trick with these kettlebell pass lunges. Like I said earlier, you could perform them with a barbell, a dumbbell, body weight, doesn't really matter. I just like it personally because it gives me a goal of what I got to do every time I lunge, as well as focusing on keeping my torso upright and just sinking into my hips with every repetition. Last but not least, we got Romanian deadlifts, and as you guys can see, I'm only working with 185 pounds, and honestly that's all you guys need, especially if you did all the work that we've done prior to doing the Romanian deadlifts. Being that this is the last exercise that we're doing, not much weight that you have to actually put on the bar to feel a contraction on your hamstrings. With 185, moving it real slow, controlling the weight coming down and being explosive at the top, engages my hamstrings exactly how I would like, and also my glutes, but doesn't put too much tension on my lower back. Like I said earlier, barbell squats does put a lot more toll on your lower back, similar to how deadlifts were. So keeping the weight relatively light but still engaging the correct muscle groups was pretty much the goal that I wanted to achieve while incorporating this movement as my final exercise. So that concludes this leg day video. If anybody has any questions or concerns, be sure to drop those in the comments below. I respond to everybody as long as you're not a troll. If you're a troll, then I'll give you like a stupid face emoji and just keep moving on with my day. Nah, but full routine is on the screen right now, so feel free to screenshot it, share it with a friend, or just save it on your phone for after this quarantine when the gyms reopen. I know a lot of you guys can't wait till the gyms reopen so we could get back to attacking these weights. If you found me on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button. FitnessKensho is the page. Instagram at FitnessKensho. Hit me with a follow. And if anybody's interested in online coaching or my training programs, feel free to visit www.fitnesskensho.com, where you will also find my blogs for a ton of articles that can help you with your own fitness journey. So with that being said, I wish you guys well. Stay healthy. And yeah, Kensho out. Later, guys.